When the men and women of the Canadian Coast Guard Auxiliary respond to a distress call, they do so prepared for almost any situation. This highly trained volunteer organization, with over 4,000 members from every walk of life, using their own vessels, go out at a moment's notice, day or night, in all weather conditions, when people get into trouble on Canada's coastal or inland waterways. The primary objective of the Canadian Coast Guard Auxiliary, or CCGA, is to save 100% of the lives at risk. Most of the 32,000 missions they have carried out in their 20-year history have had a happy ending. But others have exacted a tremendous emotional toll on even the most seasoned veteran. Wednesday, September 2nd, 1998. Swissair Flight 111, with 229 people on board, crashed violently into the ocean off Peggy's Cove, Nova Scotia, near St. Margaret's Bay. Among the first to arrive at the accident site were vessels and crews from the Canadian Coast Guard Auxiliary. This would prove to be the largest case in auxiliary history. Based on the condition of the debris floating at the scene, it quickly became apparent to searchers that chances were slim anyone could have survived this tragic air disaster. By Friday morning, search activities were stood down and the mission turned from rescue to massive recovery operation. For 65 days, 39 auxiliary members and 20 auxiliary vessels from the CCGA Maritimes region participated in the operation. They worked alongside other Canadian Search and Rescue, or SAR, organizations, searching for remains of the victims and recovering debris and wreckage for the investigation. The CCGA volunteers know these waters, and their vessels proved ideal for this task, given their size and shallow draft. At the outset, auxiliary volunteers were not fully prepared or equipped to handle a tragedy of this magnitude. However, as the enormity and gravity of the recovery operation became apparent, the outstanding professionalism, dedication, and courage of these CCGA members in the face of the grim work they had to perform earned the gratitude of victims' families and the praise of all Canadians. The tradition of vessels responding to distress situations at sea or from port is part of the fabric and in many cases the law for most maritime nations. In Canada, the participation of volunteers in maritime rescue predates Confederation. A loose network of unpaid rescue agents reported incidents and organized searches for overdue vessels. By the 1970s, it became clear that a formal volunteer network was needed to provide a more effective response to marine SAR incidents. The Canadian Coast Guard reasoned that there were able-bodied people with excellent seamanship skills who were ready and willing, and in many cases already involved in volunteer search and rescue activities. What they required was standardized SAR training and familiarization in Coast Guard procedures. And they needed funding to cover the high cost of fuel and other out-of-pocket expenses, as well as insurance when involved in SAR activities. On August 9, 1978, the Canadian Coast Guard Auxiliary became reality. And they have continued to save lives ever since. The Canadian Coast Guard Auxiliary is a major player in Canada's National Search and Rescue Response Network. The CCGA today handles, on average, 1,700 marine search and rescue incidents each year. And each year they save the lives of over 200 people. When they began over 20 years ago, they participated in about 6% of all marine SAR cases. Today, they take on in excess of 25%. Some cases are routine, helping fishermen stranded miles from shore with engine problems, looking for overdue pleasure boaters who lost track of time or ran out of fuel.
Bonjour! Le piquant qui est brisé exactement parce qu'il y a une chaloupe qui nous a été rapportée.
But others are not. Even though they are an integral part of Canada's frontline defense for marine search and rescue, CCGA members are unpaid. Their vessels must meet strict standards in order to become part of the auxiliary fleet. And members are responsible for keeping their own boats maintained. In addition, they are required to equip them with specialized search and rescue gear, which could run into the thousands of dollars. Even so, when taking part in authorized SAR activities, they are compensated only for the cost of their fuel and little else, save a thank you from the victims or their families for their tireless efforts. Who are these Good Samaritans of the sea? Some are commercial fishermen. Others are recreational boaters. But all are dedicated to saving and protecting lives in distress. The territory they cover is vast. Canada's search and rescue area of responsibility, Atlantic and Pacific, stretches over 5.3 million square kilometers, bordering some of the most rugged coastline in the world. In addition, they are present on many of Canada's major inland waterways. All CCGA members are ready to be out the door and into their boats within moments if called. Most of the calls come from one of 3 Canadian Rescue Coordination Centres, known as RCCs, or one of 2 Marine Rescue Subcenters, or MRSCs. Their job is to direct the closest and most appropriate search and rescue resources to a distress call. These centres, staffed by SAR coordinators from the Canadian Forces and the Canadian Coast Guard, are on full alert 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, year-round. In addition, the Canadian Coast Guard maintains 55 strategically located lifeboat stations to provide search and rescue services.
Mayday, mayday!
Marine SAR cases make up 72% of all search and rescue cases in Canada. The CCGA participates in over 1/4 of these call-outs. CCGA units are especially concentrated within those high-risk areas where the probability of marine SAR incidents is greatest. The operational arm of CCGA, including its substantial marine assets, is divided into 5 regions: Newfoundland, Maritimes, Laurentian, Central and Arctic, and Pacific. Each CCGA region operates within the same territorial boundaries as its rescue center counterpart, which maximizes efficiency, minimizes response time, and contributes to a close working relationship among SAR organizations where mutual support is critical to success. The organizational structure of the CCGA is testament to its humanitarian ideals and its grassroots strength. In seaside villages and ports across Canada, CCGA members are organized into units that handle missions in their vicinity. Each unit, which may have up to 80 members, is led by an elected unit leader. A group of units combines to make up a zone. It is the responsibility of the zone to assist units in issues central to their operational efficiency. Zone directors meet with the president of their region to put forward and discuss concerns that impact their units or the whole region. The 5 regional presidents represent all the zones and units in their respective areas of operation. Each president sits on the CCGA National Council, chaired by an elected Chief Executive Officer. The National Council oversees the administrative and business requirements that concern all regions. These include safety promotion, sponsorship, communications, image identity management, funding requirements and allocations, and training programs. Training includes instruction in search and rescue operations and equipment, safe boating regulations, communications procedures, first aid techniques, seamanship and boat handling skills, all of which are vital to a safe and successful rescue mission. Everyone in the CCGA, from the unit level member all the way up to the national CEO, are volunteers, working together to ensure prompt assistance to fellow mariners in distress.